Good afternoon, and welcome to the second episode of All Mixed Up, where we talk about different digital marketing issues. Today, we're going to be talking about branding. No BS branding. Don't want to say the full word, but I think you get the point there.
Oh, come on, just say it.
No bullshit branding. All right.
Because I'm going to say it eventually. So.
I'm Mark Simmons. I'm the founder and chief strategist of Mixed Digital. We're a boutique digital marketing agency working with clients across a number of different industries. And we've been around for a long time. We've seen a lot. And branding is something that comes up quite often. So Chris is our creative director and the most experienced in the room when it comes to branding. So I'll let him talk about his background and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Mark. It was really cool. I love branding. It's my most favorite part of my job as far as being a creative in advertising and marketing. But the funny thing is when you asked me a couple of weeks ago, like, would I come talk about branding? My initial reaction, and hence the name of the thing, was, "Oh, you just want me to talk about bullshit for 15 minutes?" You know, it's like, which is really funny for me because I think it just goes to show you that I've been in the business for such a long time and I see how much of branding is big business and big dollars and a lot of bullshit. And what I've come to love and what I do is like, what is branding? Why is it important? And how to do it right, like in today's marketplace. So like, and I guess so like when I think of bullshit branding, the one that really sticks out to me is like back in, I think it was like early 2000, Pepsi did a refresh on their logo. And basically, you have to see it to believe it, and I'll post some images to the feed when we do. But Pepsi basically spent $1 million to update their logo. It was just a refresh of the little circle with the blue and the red. And in order to justify that $1 million, the agency that they hired put together hundreds of pages of rationale and explanation to the point where it's like they created a Pepsi universe and tied it into yin yang, and the rationales are absolutely incredible. And I've always seen that as just like, well, if you gave a graphic artist the instructions of just refresh the Pepsi logo, they could have done the same thing for you without the $1 million explanation. So when I think of that kind of, that's like the bullshit that's in branding.
Right. It's trying to create this ethereal explanation of why the company needs to create this new vision when, in fact, all they need to do is create the new vision.
Yeah. And really, like, so what's the point? You spend $1 million into a logo refresh, okay? But is that really going to increase your brand loyalty? You know, like, so that the whole concept behind that is just mind-boggling to me because, like, let's be honest, branding and the fact that it's a lot of bullshit is that brand loyalty doesn't necessarily really even exist. It's really more like brand habits. The concept of brand loyalty, let's be honest, Pepsi redoes their logo and they go out of business, right? Do all the Pepsi drinkers say, "Oh, I'm never drinking Coke," or do they say, "Oh, I miss Pepsi," and go right to Coke?
Right.
Nike goes out of business and I like Nike shoes, but I'm strapping on a pair of Adidas and continuing the race. You know, it's more habit than it is, it's more, you know, habit than it is brand loyalty. So what's the point of investing all that time and all that money and all that rationale into increasing a brand if that's not the point of the brand?
I think you bring up a good point of the differences between the startup mentality and the young company mentality and the big brand mature company mentality, where in that sense, I'm sure the person who was responsible for that project said, "I need to justify this so that when I put this $1 million budget line in front of my boss, I can back it up as to why we need to do this because I've gone through the motions." It seems to me like a bureaucratic red tape kind of situation, whereas a startup company or smaller company, small business company would not do something like that. They would not spend $1 million, right? They couldn't afford to. It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't seem efficient. So that's an interesting concept. So why don't you talk about where you got your experience? What makes you an expert?
Basically, what makes me an expert is that I really cut my teeth in Madison Avenue in the New York City, ad world as an ad man. And I got to work on the big accounts like Taco Bell and the Taco Bell dog and US Army and Be All You Can Be account. And then I've also got to work on, smaller non-for-profit accounts that, really don't have a lot of budget and don't have a lot of experience and really define like what a brand is. I've seen it all from watching. One of my favorite examples, to speak by example, is Holiday Inn Express. So I've watched branding from big business come through agencies where they didn't, Holiday Inn came and their business model wasn't doing so well, their revenue was down. Rather than change their business model at all they redid was change their brand. They changed their logo, they did some focus groups, they changed the colors, they changed the marketing, and they added Express to the end of Holiday Inn. And then they marketed the product as if you stay at a Holiday Inn Express, then you naturally are smart, savvy, practical, kind of quick on your feet. They didn't change the business model at all. They just changed the brand to get people to think that way. And there's that sense of you throw enough money behind it and you can get people to think the way you want you to think. And that's a brand. It's what people think about you. What I've always preferred is really defining what your brand is, like the true nature of your brand. They say that I've heard the expression before, your brand is what they say about you when you're not in the room. And
Okay. What does that mean?
that, to me, that's really true. It's who you really are, or what people think that you really are, how you're coming across, how you're portraying yourself, what people really think about you. Not what they're saying about you to your face, but how people really perceive you. And it's really important to understand how people are really perceiving you and being honest with yourself to develop a good, honest brand so you stand by a good product with good service and let the brand naturally build itself.
So what I'm hearing is I like to translate the activities that we do for our clients into the omni-channel or multi-channel universe. So what I'm hearing there is social listening. When you say what people think of your brand, I think about what are they saying on social media? What are they saying when they think no one else is listening? So maybe it's tweets or public Instagram posts that people are talking about an existing brand, and what does that sentiment look like? So whereas if I'm the company and I have this idea of, we do this, we serve this market, this is how we want to portray ourselves, but research shows us that people are looking at us this particular way via social media or testimonials or reviews that are left on certain sites on the web. Maybe that doesn't align with what we think we should be doing in terms of branding. So I guess the point is to make that social media can be used as a research tool to help in developing your branding guidelines and your branding perception. What do you think? You think that's true?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's true on so many levels. I think the first level, and on a very practical aspect, is we've seen the use of focus groups and surveys and everything go down significantly because of social media listening, because that's your real audience. That's really what they're saying. And we know that people tend to be more, they call it like paper tigers, behind the screen. I'll type more of my honest opinion than if I'm in a room with cameras. So yeah, there's definitely a trend to that we're understanding who our audience is better from listening to social media. And then the other thing is using social media now to define a brand. So a really good example of that, I don't know if you followed it, Wendy's recently has put a lot of money into responding to the posts that people are putting on their social media.
Yes.
With very clever, very humorous kind of way. And they've used it now to establish this voice that relates to the millennials, that whole demographic that they wanted to get, just by responding to what people are saying about them online.
And not only responding, but as I call it, responding authentically.
Yes.
They're not making PC responses. They are going for the gusto.
Mm-hmm.
They are saying what we're all thinking.
Yep.
Those snarky responses that are hilarious in my mind and so unexpected to come from a corporate account.
Mm-hmm.
So it stands out. Yeah. I see their tweets. I see them come up in the news feeds every so often for their kind of outrageous comments. I mean, one of the funny things was, I'm going to McDonald's and what should I get? and or I'm at McDonald's and what should I get? And their response was, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, don't get anything, stop what you're doing and go someplace else, something like that.
Right.
It was just digs, and I thought it was hilarious. So they're doing a really good job, and they've also rebranded their look.
Mm-hmm.
They've modernized their look and feel from that classic focused on the little girl,
Right.
on Wendy,
Right.
right? The image of Wendy, to something that's a little more modern, sleeker. Their buildings definitely look much more modern than they have before. I kind of like that. I've seen the original one in Ohio, in Columbus, and so I kind of do like the classic look. It's just historic and, but I do appreciate the new modern look.
Yeah.
Something that you said before had me kind of thinking about the power of branding, and it deals with the wine industry. So I found out some time ago that a lot of the wine companies that we think of as different, separate companies, are really the same company, branded for different categories of consumer. So you've got let's take Beringer. So you've got Beringer, where the Beringer vineyard kind of hits the middle of the road wine consumer. Then you've got like Beringer Estates, which is targeting the higher end user. It's more refined, right? Even though it's the same grapes, it's the same vineyard. Then you've got related brands like Yellowtail, which are cheap wines. That's your $6 a bottle wine versus a $12 or a $18 or $24 bottle of wine on the high end, right? Or the high end for a grocery store, right? You can go to a specialty purveyor and they'll get you something different. But the point is that something like, to find out that Yellowtail and Beringer are related and the same, and they're just targeting a different consumer segment is fascinating to me. The way that their branding is taking that turn from, we're showing images of the vineyard and it's all classical and serene, versus Yellowtail, where it's hip and contemporary and targeting the millennial consumer. It's genius. It's very very smart, and I had no idea what was going on until I read an article about it. I thought they were different companies.
It's like that where, the best example of that is, I think you said it in general, is the supermarket. If you go down the cereal aisle in the supermarket, all those cereals, the majority of 80% of them are owned by like two major companies. And no matter what you purchase, it's all going to the same bottom line.
Right.
It's just each one of those cereals is marketed and branded towards a specific consumer. And you can have, Raisin Bran, the regular Kellogg's one, targeted toward one person. You can have the same exact cereal and just put, gluten-free, all natural, and brand it totally different and charge $2 more, and it's the same thing. There you go.
So it would be very interesting for you to talk about how this relates back to the startup or small business versus the more established, maybe larger, small end to medium-sized business that's been around for a while, has an established brand, and kind of how they should be thinking about the power of their brand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think with any brand, no matter how small or big your business is, I think it's really important every once in a while to spend a little bit of time and really define your brand, because brands change over time too. Your perception changes. One thing happens and it changes. So it's really important, and it really doesn't take much. And if you know the right questions to ask, it really doesn't take much to look at your brand. So the big guys need to do a lot more market research. They need to really pull data to really develop their brand. And because they have to be honest with themselves, they have to, I call it like sniffing out the bullshit, and I'll get into that in a little bit as far as defining a brand. I think the little guys, it's just a matter of really sitting down and being honest with themselves, and that can often be a difficult thing to do. Who are our customers? Who do we want our customers to be? How do they perceive us? How do they want us to perceive us? And really being honest and coming up with the things that are unique, that are transparent, that you can support as a company, so that you validate your brand and you build a trustworthy brand based on integrity. And so I think that's really the different approach, and then just continuing to support it as a small business. The other mistake that we often see is that we'll develop some time early on, defining a brand and a look and colors, and as time goes on, the smaller brands don't focus on it, and it gets watered down. And the logo gets changed a little, and the green changes a little bit, and then your brand gets watered down. It's not made a priority. So I think it's really important to define your brand early on, very, very honestly, and it's important to maintain that brand, keep taking a look at it, evaluate, and making sure your message is on point.
And, I think it's also important that you think about your brand as this living, breathing entity that's all pervasive throughout your company, because it touches beyond your website, your social media. It touches your print materials, your envelopes, your letterheads, your stationery. If you have a business that has company-owned vehicles, it touches that. If you go to trade shows, it touches that material. You have to think about it in its entirety, that it's every time someone sees your company, they're seeing your brand, they're seeing your branding, right? And you have to think about how it looks across every visual, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the other companies out there that you've seen that have done some not so great things, or some great things?
The not so great things. I prefer to just focusing more on the positive. So like the brands that stand out to me that I personally like, that I think do a fantastic job, are Ben & Jerry's. They've done a fantastic job from staying true to their nature of using good products, good ingredients, all natural, and they basically have that overall philosophy. You just look at a carton of their ice cream and it's like, life is good, why not eat ice cream? And they've stuck to it. I think they do an excellent job of that. Some other branding that I think just does a really good job and takes on a life of its own. There's Tom's Shoes. That's a big case study right now. They're going nuts, and basically their entire brand, they brand their entire company off of, for every pair of shoes you buy from us, we donate a pair to a kid in need, and the company's taking off, and that's their entire brand. It's the whole give back model. Yeah. So it really varies.
I was thinking a little more technical terms like FedEx. Okay. So if you envision the FedEx logo, mm-hmm. and in between the E and the X on the end, it makes an arrow pointing to the right.
Yep.
I think that's brilliant for a logistics company. I heard it was an accident, but what a fantastic accident. Yeah. It's really a beautiful logo. I'm thinking about some of the other ones in terms of visuals that I really like, but I can also think of like slogan, slogan and branding. For the rest of Sleepy's, for the rest of your life.
Yes.
I think that's like timeless and brilliant. For this mattress or these mattresses will last you for the rest of your life, but it'll give you the rest of your life, the best rest of your life. Like it's such a cool slogan, and there are others like that I can't remember.
A great tagline can make or break a company.
Yeah. It's so hard to come up with one. It's so hard to come up with one.
Yeah, great taglines can be really good.
Well, let's talk about some of the negatives, because part of what we want to do is we want to help people avoid missteps and pitfalls. So what's the most common branding mistake that you see companies making?
Let's start more from the middle-sized company or the startup company. The most common mistake is trying to jam too much information. Too much stuff in a small bag is just going to create a big mess, and that's the common mistake. I want my logo to represent my company and have a visual of this and a visual of that and represent this, and everything becomes cluttered. Messages become cluttered. So I think the key thing whenever doing a branding is collect all the information, collect the data, and then continue to simplify until there's nothing left to take away, but you're still getting your message across. Simplify your logo to its basics, memorable, easy to reproduce. Have 3 unique selling points, just 3 simple selling points that make you different from your competition or that you want your audience to remember. It's all about simplifying.
Okay. And that's a good point. Competitive differentiation. It's something we throw around a lot, and it's very important, and it could also be very difficult to articulate that because we have this. When you're running a business and you have competition and you think about what they offer and what they do, what benefits they provide, what problems they solve, a lot of times you see a lot of overlap, and it can be very difficult to find, to weed through and figure out what truly makes us different. With some companies, it's a little easier. They have a clear advantage. But with a lot of companies in competitive spaces, it becomes a lot more challenging. But it's very important to really give some thought to when you're developing that strategy. The other thing I see is not so much branding, but just kind of on the strategy side, when companies are trying to identify their target market. I feel like a lot of them tend to go on the broader side. They want to be all things to all people instead of really focusing in on who their real customers are and who's most likely to purchase their product or service. And when it comes to the marketing that we do for customers, that's extremely important to really know. And I always tell them to try and create profiles, right? Look at your current customers and try and divide them into categories and then profile those individuals. What's their age? Where are they from? What are their behaviors? What are their interests? So that we can then fine tune the marketing to see what's going to be most effective in reaching those different segments of their customer population, right? I see that as one of the things that that companies don't spend enough time on, or they end up casting too wide a net, right? Instead of being more targeted. So, okay, back to the branding.
I agree. That's a really, really good point, and I think sometimes we forget. We get into marketing lingo, and you're always right. It's like, well, who's your audience? And it's women 25 to 54. And what I always say is, when you're thinking about your brand, when you're thinking about your audience, is try to use layman's terms. Get out of the marketing, right? Like you were just saying, so Mary is our demographic, but let's paint the picture of Mary. And I know we do that for our clients. It's not just Mary as an age. It's, Mary's at home in her kitchen, in her 4-bedroom, 2.5-bedroom house with her 4-door sedan in the driveway, and she shops at Whole Foods. And so you paint the picture. And
what triggers.
So now you know who you're talking to. Right. You know what this person wants to hear. Their bullshit radar level. It makes the person more real. It's not just a number. Right. Yeah, and that's important with branding. Branding isn't that marketing game. It's not reach, frequencies, and impressions. You can throw a lot of money at a brand and make it stick, but real branding is more about personality. It's not something that can be measured.
And that's a good point as we start to wrap up. That's a good point about personality. That in this world of social media, I think people underestimate the value of social media and the power of social media in creating that personal connection. You have this opportunity to become a part of your customers and your prospective customers' lives by interjecting yourselves in their online activities via social media, right? So when we think about that we're almost invading their space, technically, you want to do it in a way that doesn't feel like an invasion. You want to do it in a way that makes them feel like you're providing them with useful information or something humorous to take to lighten their day. You have to think about that. And it goes back to content strategy and how we view our social media services that we provide, but it's doing your best to integrate yourself into their lives instead of interject into their lives. And I don't know if that is clear on the distinction there, but you want to try and become a part of and not feel so external the way an advertisement would feel, right? It's a difficult thing to do, for sure, but it's not impossible, and we're definitely pretty successful at doing that. So any final thoughts on branding before we cut out for the week?
I guess the last final thought, I mentioned it earlier, is to like, how can we help people with their approach to branding? So like, I came up with this little, since this is bullshit, it was really sniff out the bullshit. And what I was saying before with the whole like, be honest, be integrity. So SNIF is the acronym. So the first thing is being self-aware, being true to yourself. What do you really stand for? What is your product? Is your product really a good product? The next one is natural. You know, come across as sounding natural. Speak the way you would speak to another customer. Very often we get into marketing lingo. Have integrity. Be honest in what you say. And then the last two F's in SNIF are be factual. And then what's the last one? And be forthright. And so I think that'll give you an idea of what I'm saying when you're really looking at your brand. If you ask yourself those key questions, that really is your brand. And that's who you want to be. And if you can define that and you can stick to that, you can support it, your brand will evolve and you'll have a good foundation in your brand. And if you have flaws in that foundation and you're trying to sell something that you're not, the public will pick up.
That's a great way. I think that's a great way to end this. My last thought is just kind of to amplify what you're saying and give an example. You know, I like hip hop. You know, I like rap music, and I have this idea in my head of what it should be. And when it comes to advertisements, there have been times where brands like Coca-Cola, maybe Coca-Cola is not the right one that did it, but there have been brands, major consumer product brands, I'm trying to think of the example, where they have used rap music in their commercial, but it felt inauthentic because I think it was, I want to say it was McDonald's, right? I think it was McDonald's. It's like, instead of getting a rapper to do it, they got someone to rap.
Right.
And it was written by someone who you could tell obviously didn't have a good handle on what rap or hip hop is. And you can see it like that. You can feel it, that this is awful. And it's just, they're attempting to reach this market with this music and it just doesn't come off right. So that's a branding fail for sure.
It comes across as bullshit.
Yes,
and
it comes across as
that's my
bullshit.
point. Like, good branding is not about bullshit.
I think that consumers these days are a lot smarter than advertisers give them credit for. And we can see it. You know, we can smell it, we can see it, we know it, and it turns us off. So I guess my final thought is be authentic, right? When you're authentic, people will recognize that and they will appreciate that, and you'll get more value out of it. You'll definitely get more value out of it than trying to force something that you're not.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you for watching.
Cheers.
We appreciate it.
Everybody.
We'll be doing these quite often. Don't know what the next topic's going to be, but we'll figure that out. So thanks for watching All Mixed Up.
Send some recommendations.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know what you want to hear about. That makes it much easier on us. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.